Okay, good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. Good morning, Jason. Morning, Michael. So we really appreciate you joining us for today's Flexi webinar. And we're going to be kicking it off by handing it over to Mr. Bobby Fosson. He's coming to you from Atlanta, Georgia today. And Bobby is the new Director of Training here at SAi. And he's been using Flexi for a very long time and knows the ins and outs. And he's going to go ahead and show you the presentation on how to work with templates in Flexi, help speed up your workflow. And then after that presentation, we're going to open it up for questions. So you can just go ahead and type it into the chat window there that you all are using. And we'll answer as many of those as we can, whether you have questions about using template in Flexi or any other just lingering deep questions that you have about the universe or Flexi. You know, Bobby will be able to get those answered for you. So with that, we'll turn it over to him.
All right, Stuart. I appreciate the introduction, and thank you all for attending today. As Stuart mentioned, I'm fairly new to SAi. I'm also the channel sales director or sales manager, as well as the guy now in charge of pretty much training, as well as the Flexi workshops. So what I wanted to go through today with you was working with templates in the Flexi software. I've had quite a few customers come to me and ask for information and ways of actually getting artwork over to their customers and then being approved to where they can get a sign-off in order to actually make it quicker and easier and avoid any kind of communication issues. So basically, some of you may have used the templates in the past, but they're just an easy way to present your company in a professional manner. But it also gives the ability to organize all of your artwork files as well as make them extremely easy to find later in the future. We'll show you how to do that with a few other features as well. So what we'll do is I'll go ahead and get into the Flexi software. What we're going to do today is create a new template in the software itself, and mainly for the purpose of printing and emailing your client for revisions or approvals, or if you are a retail type sign shop, you can print this out, actually have your customer at the front counter make changes or sign off on this. So I'd also recommend whenever you're making a copy of this template, print it out for your own internal use as well. So once they sign it, you'll be able to attach this to any kind of physical paperwork, such as an invoice, purchase order, or anything along that lines. So basically, training your staff to design using these features will make short work of submitting proofs to your clients and allow you to find these files a lot faster later, especially if you have any kind of employee turnover issues. So with this in mind, what we'll do is we'll go ahead and switch over to the Flexi software. And what we're going to do is we're going to actually start a brand new file and actually create a template from scratch. We will actually pull a little bit of detail off of one of the pre-made templates just to make this a little bit quicker, seeing as we only have a brief amount of time. So what we're going to do is start off with our actual document size. So from here, I actually set this up to be an 8.5 by 11 sheet. So this is one way. So we'll set it up to 8.5 by 11. And then in the fill stroke editor, this is actually going to act as the border of the artwork approval or the template. So I'm going to actually change this to a no fill. And then in fill stroke editor, go to the stroke and apply a thin stroke around the outside of it. So that gives us something that when we print this out, we'll actually be able to see the border, and it a lot of times just frames everything to get a nice professional look. So from there, what we can do is go ahead. I'm already created a couple little files. I'm going to go into open here, and I'm going to open up just this SAi logo file. We're going to use these as our company logo, as well as we'll use this one here in a few minutes as a watermark. So we're going to select the Flexi here. I'm going to right click and choose copy. We'll go ahead and minimize this screen, and then we're going to right click in the new file and paste this here right in the middle. All right. So from there, what we're going to do is I'm going to open up one of our previous templates, because basically the idea is I want my drawing size or drawing itself to be right in the middle. And then we're going to have all kinds of information and details for the customer, as well as file name and a few other options in there as well. So in the templates, we can go to the file menu, we can go to templates, and then I'm going to open a template. Notice we have apply, open, save, save as, and then a template toolbar. We'll open that here in just a minute. But first off, we're going to rob some information off of one of the pre-made templates. So we'll open template. As you can see, Flexi's actually already got quite a few templates in this list. These are all default. Everybody should have copies of these, with the exception of this one right here, which is the one that I created, which is what we're working on right now. So I'm going to actually go to the job info 3. We can select this template, and as you see, we actually have a basic drawing or basic layout. What I'm wanting to do is just select these two bottom pieces, and we're going to rob these out. Now, I'll show you how to actually edit these here in a few minutes as well, so it's not something that you're going to forget or anything there. I will show you how that detail works. But you notice, for some reason, which I'll explain, selecting this object, it's not selecting everything I want, and that's basically due to the fact that I have it by fully enclosing. I got that by double-clicking on the Select tool. I have to fully enclose the object that I want to select. So now what we'll do is we'll again right-click and we will copy this. We're going to minimize this and bring it back into our Flexi file. Now again, this is a new file. This is not a template yet. So when I paste this in here, we'll put that right at the bottom. And you see how that kind of fits in there. So from here, what I'm going to do is select this exterior piece and just kind of fit it to the object at the bottom to frame everything in nice and neat. And then we actually have the starts of our template. So what I'm going to do is first off go ahead and actually save this as a template. We're not finished with it, but we're going to save it so we don't lose anything. So we'll go to File, we go to Templates, and we're going to actually click Save as Template. What this is going to allow us to do is give it a name. So we'll just call this template 2, for example, and click OK. Now, if we zoom in and look at these details, you can see I actually have a label for each one of these already created, and then I've got a placeholder for each detailed information. I'll show you where all of this information comes from and how you, as well as your staff, can actually put that into place here in a little bit. So first off, what we're going to do is we now need to be able to start editing this and actually create it into, or edit the template itself. So if you go to File, go to Templates, and then we're going to go back to the Template toolbar. You'll notice that this pops up a little window where I have all kinds of different options, such as Apply Template, Active Drawing Placeholder. We have used colors, we have used fonts, job information, and then Save, Save As, and so forth. So first off, what we want to do is I'm going to create a drawing space here, a placeholder, for my artwork. Because essentially what you're going to do is design your customer's artwork file and save that as a Flexi format. So from there, we'll apply the template to that file, therefore not editing or changing your original file, but creating a separate template page. So in order to do that or pull that drawing over, I need to go over to Active Drawing Placeholder and click and drag a box. And this is going to be where your new file comes into play once you apply the template. Now, another couple of things that are really, really handy in this template toolbar is the ability to also add job information to this. For example, if I click on the job info icon here, you notice Design Central changes. I can now go over and actually change from job info, customer info, as well as other. One thing that's very common that I run into is people have a lot of trouble trying to remember where they saved files or the names or even what font or anything like that was used in the file. So from here, I can actually use other, choose folder name, and then I can click and drag a box to actually represent where that folder name is going to go. So I'm going to reduce the size of my lettering just to fit, and then I'm going to actually come in and click another one which created the exact same thing, but in Design Central I'm going to change that from folder name to file name. So now what we can do is take these two objects, align those together, and then scoot them down or make them fit within that area. So now when I save this file and I bring in the data, the drawing will be put in, all of the customer information will be put in, as well as folder name and file name. Those get pretty handy, and especially if you're able to print this out and save it with your artwork or save it with your invoice, for example. If you ever have to pull this document again, you know exactly where those are located. So another thing I like to do is I like to move the description up here to the top left-hand corner, because I actually want to go in and give you the option of typing in information such as copyright information, or anything like that, such as something else that's extremely handy, or conditions such as, do you require a deposit? Do you require, or do you have any conditions for refunds or changes or charges that might need to be added in here? So once we actually finish or get this in here, we'll resize this, but I'll show you one other quick thing. Inserting text or text symbols is really simple. I can click my text tool right here before the 2018. I can go to text and go into insert symbols, and you see the ANSI character map. So when I single click on one of these, you notice it puts it right in there. So that's basically how you can put in those odd characters without having to create a C, as well as then a circle and then outline it. So we'll resize this to fit it to where every time you send this job over into a template, or any job into this template, it has your information saved right here down at the bottom. So same thing here is we can actually scoot this information up. So if this was your company logo, obviously you probably want to actually go in and type in your phone number, type in your website information, or whatever it may be, and give your customer an option or the ability to find you. I can type it all. thinksai.com 29966. So now from there we can actually resize that to fit that into place. So the reason for making templates is to be able to create something that is reproducible all the time, therefore giving you almost a branding effect of your entire template layout. Now, we have pretty much most everything that I would normally put in here, but one thing that has popped up and come up to me is down here at the bottom. There's really no place right now for the customer to sign off on this or anything along that lines. So one thing I do is sign dimensions. I put in a different way, and I'll show that to you here in just a second as well. But I'll do is I'll actually come in and I delete these things out, because all of this is editable. So I'll just make a copy, for example, of this piece here. I'll select it, hold my control key down, hold my shift to hold it in order. And then we can actually go in and type in, let's type in approval signature / revisions. So that way, if they have revisions, they can actually either write these in, or you can write them in and then make your changes and then print this out again for them to get, make final approval. So now you have a spot for them to actually sign off on this, saying that that is exactly what they want, with the colors they want and layout and size, as well as quantity or anything along that lines. So from here, next important thing is always save your work. So we want to go back to the file menu, go to templates, and we want to save template. We're overwriting what we did just a few minutes ago. Okay? So from here, what we're wanting to do at this point is go through and actually open up our artwork file, for example. So I'm going to open up a file that I did a little bit earlier. We're going to open this. So this is basically, as you can see, if I select this outside piece, it's an 18 by 24 election sign. So this would be done on corrugated plastic, or that type, maybe a banner or something along that lines. So from here, what you can do is this file itself, you want to make sure that nothing is selected. But if you want to actually take it into the template, first what we're going to need to do is we need to close this one out. Bring this back up, and we're going to go up to the file menu. We can go to templates, and then we're going to apply a template. Now from here, you'll see SAi template 2 is the one that we just created a little bit earlier. So I'm going to select it, and I can hit select, and it's going to bring that file directly into your template. So as we zoom in and look at this, you can see your customer has information as well as other job information that I saved with this, which I'll show you how to do that. But the important thing on some of these, again, file name and such, you can see this has got a really long file path. All of this is fully editable, so you can actually go back and you can move it and so forth. So nothing is set in stone necessarily. So going back, one of the things that really comes up is customers that I've run into, they really have a spatial problem when it comes to looking at something on paper or something on the screen and relating to how large it is going to be physically. So you want to make sure that you're putting some sort of dimension labels or dimension line, something on your artwork, and bringing it in here in order to actually show that customer exactly what size this is going to be. So what we'll do is I'm going to close this out because we really don't want to save this. I want to go back to the original file. I'm going to zoom out, and this is another feature within the Flexi software. I can select this outside rectangle, and then in my shapes tool, I'm sorry, not my shapes tool, my dimensions or measurement tools here, I have an option right here at the very next to last for automatic dimension lines. So when I check that, it gives the customer now a spatial relation to exactly what size the finished object is going to be. Now, what we could also do, let's say if we're going to actually put a step stake or something along that lines, we can actually come in, create just a thin rectangle. We'll pop up or copy another one, move it on over. We'll create another rectangle to represent the step or the step portion of the stake, and there we are. So this is your finished sign that you're actually wanting to show the customer. So I want to go ahead, save this file, seeing as we did make some changes to it. But before we apply the template, if you remember, if I go back and open, oh, sorry, clicked on the wrong one. If we go back to template and we open this template, and I hit select, you can see or remember that all of this data, this metadata, is in there somewhere. So in order for it to pull that information, it has to be saved with your original file. And there's a lot of neat things about this. So let me show you how to actually get that information in. While you're still in your artwork file, you can go up to the Edit menu and go down to Job Info. This is where all of this information is saved. So if you can actually get your employees or get your staff trained to where they can take an extra minute, give or take, to actually fill out some of this information. It doesn't have to be all of it, but some of it, it will really come in handy. And the reason being is it's all searchable. And I'll explain why a little bit more detail on that here in a few minutes as well. So from here, we're just typing in all the job information. Let's say I put $2,500 on this, which that's awful expensive for just one election sign. But in description here, I've actually got a list or typed in some information for 18 by 24, quantity 400. Are they double-sided? I don't know. Let's just put single-sided. We can also put comments in here, and we can also put keywords, which again, I want to come back to keywords because those are pretty important. But if you put or fill in all of this information, you can then go over to customer and actually apply all of their details into the file as well. Now keep in mind, all of this is actually being saved with your artwork file. So once we have this information saved, I can click on OK. And again, I'm going to hit save to make sure that everything is applied. And then from there, I'm going to go ahead and go back to File, go into Templates, and then Apply Template. We don't need to open it because we're not going to edit the file or edit the template. We're applying this design into an already existing template that we created. So when I check on this box and hit Select, we actually now see more detail. All of the information is in here. We also have up here, you notice it says single-sided because we did make that change. And it also shows our dimension labels. Now, in this instance, I would say this might be a little bit too large. It's kind of cramping up some of the other information, such as my file name and stuff like that. So I can scoot this down or move it or even delete it for that matter. But I can select my design and resize it in order to then fit in the screen. But notice the dimension labels did not change. So this template is basically locking all of these numbers in place to where you can actually modify this and without actually, again, originally editing the original file. So from here, what we run into, well, let me just show you this. The next step, or one thing that I do, is customers always are somewhat concerned about customers stealing their artwork or other sign shops or whatever the reason may be, or again, just think of it as a branding opportunity. I'm going to close this file for a minute. And again, this is the template, so we don't need to necessarily save it. We still have our original artwork here. So that's all in place. So I'm going to open up, remember earlier we had the We'll open the original of the template that we created, hit select. Now, we also had one of the other files in here that had the SAi logo on it. So let me bring that back up, because what I'm wanting to do is select my logo. This is a vector-based logo. I'm going to, again, right-click on it and choose copy. I'll bring this back in, and we're back in our template that we created. I'll zoom in to where we can see all of this, and I'm going to right-click and I'm going to paste this vector graphic right in the center of this box. Now you ask, why would you do this? Well, what I'm wanting to do is create a watermark where you can see that this vector is on top of my drawing placeholder. So selecting this vector, infill stroke editor, I can put a transparency or a lens on it. Let's just call it 15%. No, not 1. Let's see here, 1.5. All right. So now what you see is this is actually going to be applied over top of whatever drawing that is actually imported, basically creating a watermark. Now, another thing you can do, some don't like a large watermark. They may want a bunch of little ones. That's fine. You can resize this watermark, move it. Using the other function called step and repeat in the software, we can actually create multiples however far you want them apart. We can hit our checkbox, and then we center these up a little bit, and now we have another way of doing that. Now keep in mind, all of these can be actually changed as in their transparency. So some printers may print a little bit darker when you run into this, but I've got another tip for that too here in just a minute. So what we're going to do is go to File. We need to save our template. We go back to Template and we save. So from there, we're going to close this out. We now have our original artwork file. Then we can go to File, Templates, and then apply the template again to the same one. And you'll notice that that watermark actually slightly on top. So again, this is a branding opportunity for you, but it also kind of discourages anybody else from actually trying to steal the artwork or do anything with it, because if they scan it, you might have some problems with vectorizing it later. But that also leads me to the next step. When you're getting ready to actually send this file over, there's several things you could do. One of the things that you might want to do is actually, for one, is all of these bitmaps, all the vectors here with the transparency on it. If you print those to a standard desktop printer, they don't always print transparent. So that can be a little bit difficult to work with. So what you want to do is actually convert that over or rasterize those, and it should help out. Not all printers do it. Some print perfectly fine. But if you do, you may have to right-click on this, or go up to the bitmap, and you may have to rasterize that in order for it to work. Okay? So from there, what we want to do now is take this piece, and you're going to either file and print, or you're going to export as a PDF. You can export as a JPEG, whatever that you want, in order to actually send this job to your customer in order to actually get approval, make changes, or anything along that lines. So the question comes up a lot is, I forgot where the file was, or I didn't put information such as file name or folder, for example, in my template. So let's say, I created this file 4 or 5 years ago. It's time for him to be up for re-election again. You want to edit this file and work with it. So we're going to close out this template, and I'll show you how to find it. So if you go back to the original and go back up to the edit and job info, you'll remember all of this information is searchable, including order taken by, the order date, and so forth. But what I would like you to try to consider is setting up some categories for the different types of signs that you do, whether they are print cut signs or vinyl, laminated, or banners or corrugated plastic, or whatever it may be that you're trying to create, license plates for that matter, magnetic signs. But kind of get somewhat general with those. And at that point, in keywords, what we can do is type in specific keywords. So for example, this is an election sign, we'll type elect, but it's also corrugated plastic, so we'll just type in corrugated or plastic for that matter. And then we go ahead and click on OK. The reason for doing this is Flexi's got another feature in it called Find. So if you go up to the File menu and you click on Find right here, you can actually search by folder or the entire computer, which if you're anything like me, you've got too many files on your computer, so you don't want to do that. You want to try to isolate your artwork into specific folders, but make sure you have include subfolders checked as well. But what I can do is I can change this option here and actually search by any of these options. So I can even search by street, zip code, city, anything along that lines. But if I, for example, in this case, I'm going to actually search by keywords. Let's just type in plastic or corrugated. When I click on search, it's going to search this folder and all folders underneath it for any files that are keyworded with that name or with that word in it. So when I hit search, it should actually find that. So either I misspelled it or it was in a different document or something there. So let me see where that file was saved. So election, let's just check here, file, save as, because again, I don't want to search the entire computer. So we'll just search the SAi Flexi folder here. So we'll change this and we'll go to this folder. Now we type in keywords, plastic, and search, and for some reason it's not working. So let me go check. Maybe I did not save that file correctly. So let's go to edit, go back into job info and keywords here, and now save the file. I don't remember if I saved that file. So we'll go back into the file menu, go to find file. Now we should be able to search that folder for this, and there it is. So I don't think I saved the file whenever I made the keyword changes. So at this point, it will show you all of the files in a list of all of them that have the keywords containing plastic or corrugated or whatever it is that you want. So it'll show you a preview of that file when you select it, but you can also click on job info right here, and it will pull up all of the details and show you all of the information that you typed in. So for example, this one was $2,500. You now have all the customer information and so forth. So you've got all of that to look back up, especially if you have a new designer or you have somebody in the production crew that's looking for a file and you're just not sure where it is. That's one way to go back and try to look and find it. So that should basically get you to the point where you can now create a sign or anything really for that matter, and then apply it to a template that is consistent with your company branding, and then be able to print or export this out and then send it to your customer in order to actually get approval or changes along those lines. So that's pretty much templates. I'm sure there's quite a few other examples that you can think of, being the sign people that you are, being creative. You'll be able to go in and change some of these functions or change some of these options in order to actually make them work the way you want, as well as make them more productive for your shop. So one thing, before I finish up here, I want to go through and change or look at the templates folder or the template file, because I need to show you, which I did not, and select some options here. All of these fields can be changed. So just keep in mind that when you click on anything in the Flexi software, Design Central comes up and gives you a bunch of options. For example, top right hand corner is your template folder or template tab. So here it's telling us customer info, customer name, all of that. You can change those. So all of these are editable. I just wanted to make sure that you were aware that you could go through and change these. And keep in mind that not all of these are necessarily in the same place. You may have to go to job info in order to get other information, such as even terms or order numbers and things like that. But just make sure that you're switching through some of these in order to look through this drop-down list and find it exactly it is what that you want to put in your file. So that really pretty much is Flexi templates in a nutshell, and that hopefully will help you and your sign shop not only be a little bit more productive, but a little bit quicker, a little bit more efficient, as well as brand your company a little bit better and give you the option to find files if you have any problems finding them or losing them a little bit later. So with that, we'll go ahead and turn this back over to Stuart and see if we have any questions that may come up, and see if we might be able to help you with anything else.
All right, fantastic. Thank you so much, Bobby. So like you said, we're going to turn it over to you guys for some questions. I think we've covered templates pretty thoroughly, but if you have any more questions or want to just go over something again, feel free to type that in. We'll get those answered. And Therese, we are recording this currently, so we'll be posting this on our YouTube channel. So you will be able to review the entire webinar there.
One thing I will show is while we're waiting on a question or two here is when we take our file in, you can do the parent preview of course and get that ready as well. But also on the dimension lines, we do get this question quite a bit. You can customize dimension lines. So again, once you select them in your original artwork file, Design Central does have tabs to where you can change those. So if you have a specific font that you want to, again, try to make your company stand out a little bit different than others, you do have the options of changing different types of arrows and such like that. So you can customize those as well.
Okay. So it looks like we do have a couple of questions here. One from Ryan. Said, do you need to turn your design to a bitmap also so that it is not editable from the template?
Once you actually apply this into your template, for example, we go ahead and apply this into your our template here. It is all vector really at this point. So if you want to protect yourself a little bit farther, you could definitely go into File. You could export this out and export this as like a high-res JPEG or a TIFF or anything along that lines. If it is vector when you designed it and bring it into the template, it is still vector. So if they have a vector editing program and you're saving this out as an EPS, they can import that. So it would be one of those things that you might want to go ahead and try to protect yourself a little bit. Now, another option is selecting your image inside of the template and going into bitmap and rasterize it. Now keep in mind you have some settings here. It's going to blow up your file size, but you would have the option of doing this where I can hit OK, but again, your watermarks are now not covering that bitmap. But when they zoom in and look at it, you'll be able to see that, hey, it's going to be extremely hard for them to reproduce. But on a piece of paper being printed out, it's a presentation of what your sign's going to look like. So that may be one other option that would help you and prevent any kind of theft of your design.
Okay, thank you. So we have another question from Jarrett. It said, can you make a template that a customer can sign electronically?
Not that I'm aware of right now, but one of the things that you might be able to do, and I haven't played with this yet, there's actually two ways you might be able to. For one, if you're sending it to somebody, obviously, and they're on an iPhone or something that has like your iSign or some sort of application on it, you might be able to integrate that in. But you could export this out as a PDF file. And then from there, if you have Adobe Acrobat Pro, you could take it in there and actually set it up as a form, for example, where when you send it, they would be able to sign off on it. The other option would be is to take your whole design and send it to them via the artwork approval tool. So that was, I believe, covered in another webinar, but essentially by going through the artwork approval tool, which is available in the Flexi 12 and the subscriptions, you'll be able to email that file to the customer, and it's actually going through our servers essentially at that point. And the image itself is protected. It's not able to be right-clicked. It's not able to be saved. But what it will do is send the customer a link through email that they will be able to click on, and then from there view your image, and they'll actually literally be able to go in, click on an object, and make a comment over to the right or left, and then hit submit in order to send it back to you. From there, under your reports, you'll be able to see that it actually has comments and messages to where you can communicate back and forth with them and send as many revisions that you want. So the artwork approval tool would be another option for them to do that. It's not a digital signature necessarily, but it is a check and balance basically, and to where they can approve it or make changes or not, and you can see a history of all of those changes and comments.
Perfect. Okay, so we had another question from Paul. He said, how do I set my copy and paste up? When we paste, it just drops it in the art. We have to zoom out to find it.
Okay. Sometimes that could be a preference setting. So if you go up to the Edit menu, you can go to Preferences here, and I believe when you go to Tools and we go down to Paste, it actually tells you to auto place on paste and import. So you can actually tell it exactly where you want XY coordinates to actually place that. So normally I don't like putting it at 0, 0 because a lot of times your artwork starts at 0, 0, but you can set it up just a little bit different. So we can set this up at, let's just call it 12 by 12 by 12. And once you apply this, it's not going to work now. It will work on the next file that you create. So whenever you copy this in and you start your new file and you paste, it should actually put it at 1212. And let's see here. And it put, I think I actually clicked. So if I right click and paste on there, it should actually put it in place in there. So it's either, I'll have to double check that. For some reason it looks like it's actually moving it 12 inches at a time rather than actually placing it exactly at 1212. So that may be the issue that you're referring to, as in each time you do that. What I'll do is, if I think I've got some information. If we could get his email, I'd love to be able to get that squared away for him and see if we can't get that fixed for you.
Okay. Yeah, Paul, I've got your email here, so I'll be able to go ahead and probably can follow up with you on that.
Sure, be glad to.
And then we have another question from Rick. He says, a little off topic, but that's all right. Can you address the distribute tools either now or a different time?
Definitely go through it on a different time. What I'll do is I'll make a note here. That would be a really, really good option. May not be enough for a full session, but there are some tools that would really come in handy in order to be able to work with those. We've got quite a few companies or businesses that really, they don't even know what the DISQ is. So it may be something that I can set up something for maybe the next webinar to go through the majority of the arrange menu in order to actually go through and change and get information on distribute as well as DISQ and go through some resizing, because there are some things in resizing that come up quite a bit. Now, in the meantime, what I would recommend is, if you have the Flexi 12 and have the cloud here, if you have your cloud window open on the right-hand side, if you click on Knowledge Base, it'll actually take you to our website, and you'll actually be able to go in and type in what you need. We've redone this quite a bit, so it's actually a lot more user-friendly than the old days. But just in, for example, distributing objects, you'll be able to read about that, as well as it gives you an exact, example of each different option within the tool itself. So we've worked pretty hard on trying to get this up to date, as well as much more user-friendly, rather than the old help manual, which normally, was going to help and help about or help topics and looking at it this way. It is a lot easier to work through the knowledge base now. So hopefully you can take a couple minutes and go through that, but that is a good idea to try to go through those functions on maybe the next webinar.
Okay, excellent. Yeah, I've got that jotted down here as well, so we can
Thank you.
cover that in a future webinar here. Thank you, Rick. Okay, well, if anyone has any more questions, feel free to go ahead and type those in. Otherwise, we will wrap this one up.
All right, and I also want to just thank everybody for attending and showing up and taking the time out of your day. I know it's not always easy, but hopefully you gain some information out of this that will your company will benefit from. And my information will actually be, Stuart, is it actually set up to where they actually have access to my email and such, or?
Nope, but we can go ahead and I'll just type it in the little chat window here, just in case anyone
That'd
has
be great. So yeah, that way,
any questions.
Additional information, I'd be more than happy to try to help out. Because we're always looking for ideas for future webinars as well. So bringing up the distribute function and a few others, I do appreciate it.
Okay. So we've got Bobby's email address down in the bottom there, so feel free to email him if you have any questions about today's webinar or any suggestions for future ones. And as I mentioned earlier, we are recording this, so we'll go ahead and post this on the SAi YouTube channel, and you should receive an email with the link. So if you want to review it or send it to anyone else that could benefit from it, feel free to do so. All right, and thank you all for attending. We'll see you next month.
All right, thank you.